Yeah, I'm ready to start mine. Get this fair time of the year. Let's get it going.
All right, here we go. Let me set up the settings. We got
All right, I'll
all one
filibuster.
round. Boom,
So
here we
obviously
go.
Panthers number one on the clock. I, I'll keep it short. It's CJ Stroud for me. I'm with you. They trade up. They need a quarterback. I already mentioned the size concerns with Young. I feel like with Carolina, their line definitely isn't as good to hold up against for Bryce Young. I think Stroud gives you a little more insurance in terms of his size. And we mentioned before, we think there's untapped uh, improvisation ability with his legs that he can tap more into, and he's mentioned himself, like we said. So I got CJ Stroud going number one to the Carolina Panthers. Now for number two, once again, this is Aaron, the GM. I think the Texans have a good O line. You got to start building something. I think the hot seat's kind of on Nick Casario and the gang. I mean, if I remember correctly, Lovey Smith's still there, or did he get let go too? If I
He
remember
got fired
correctly.
too.
Yeah, so I don't know. At some point, the onus is going to go on Nick Casario. You let go of two consecutive head coaches 1 year in. You got to start building something. Why am I blanking on their current quarterback's name? But he
Davis
hasn't been the
Mills.
Davis Mills. Sorry, Davis, but Davis hasn't been shown that he can be a franchise guy. I think he's a solid guy, maybe a great backup, but can't be that guy. I think you get Bryce Young here, quarterback Alabama. You still got Tunzel, although he's been wanting a trade, but still got a solid O line. Damian Pierce, solid running back. Hopefully, maybe some of these wide receivers like Mechie that they invested, some mid round picks can come in and be impact guys, and they can also get a wide receiver later. Think he addressed this. You don't know if you're going to be at two or maybe at five next year, and maybe there's not as the quarterbacks don't end up as good or teams jump you. I think you just go get Bryce Young, see, uh, address that need, and you have another pick later on. But man, it was tough not to go with a defensive player like Jalen Carter here, like you had. So
Yeah,
I
for
went with Bryce
me,
Young. Go
I
ahead.
was I was gonna say for me the thing that like I said, I already kind of explained it on mine, but another key factor was D'Amico Ryan's another head coach, defensive guy. If he has any sway, then he could go defensive player. That said, oftentimes you see new coach, new quarterback, those kind of guys, their careers get paired together. If the QB is successful, the coach will be there for a long time. So, maybe D'Amico Ryans wants to pair that with Bryce Young, and so I'm not upset about the pick. Like I said, I think realistically that's the most likely pick.
Yeah. So Bryce Young at two, and then three. This is where I go Jalen Carter. I think especially with there's no trades here, Cardinals need help up front. JJ Watt gone, and then Zach Allen, their other solid defensive end. He signed with the Broncos. They really don't have anything else right now on either side of the trenches. I love get Jalen Carter. He can mostly win inside. Is obviously the reason why he's considered the top, not just defensive tackle, but top defensive prospect or even prospect in this draft. I'm not too concerned about the off the field stuff like you mentioned. It doesn't seem like teams are too, because even when the report initially came out, a lot of people are saying they don't expect him to fall out of top 10. So Cardinals get their guy Jalen Carter to help that defense get back on track at three, and for me at four, I forget if you had them. Did you have the Colts getting quarterback? Because I have them getting Anthony Richardson.
I had them taking
Trying to remember.
Bryce Young here.
Okay, I forgot Young fell that you did. So yeah, so once again, we both felt quarterback. Yeah, I feel like Anthony Richardson, maybe his style can help get the Colts back on track in terms of their offensive line, because as we saw last year, all of a sudden kind of fell apart. Shane Steichen coming from the Philly kind of can get his own Jalen Hurts, but maybe obviously I think we feel like Richardson has a higher ceiling athletically and arm wise. Obviously going to be raw at first, but hey, pair him with Jonathan Taylor. We know they have solid weapons, and let them kind of grow this year, and hopefully you get their line back on track. I think Richardson helps, regardless, will help clean up some of those issues on the line and help them out, and give the Colts maybe a quarterback that they've been looking for since Andrew Luck. So I'll go with Richardson there at four. Shane Steichen's Jalen Hurts to start building his offense around there. Number five, the Seattle Seahawks, and this was I forget. I don't. Did you have this is where you had Will Anderson here, I think, right?
I had Tyree Wilson here from Texas
Oh,
Tech.
well, okay, that's what I thought. Because I guess what? I have Tyree Wilson here as well. I think I already alluded to it. He was my favorite edge of the draft. Yeah, and you mentioned Seattle needs to kind of rebuilding. They got I like what they have on offense. We like their two young tackles. And as I mentioned a few minutes ago, I feel like they can get guard a little bit later in the draft. They do have a pick later in the draft. I think if you can get a premier edge guy, you go get him now. Uchenna Nwosu was their best edge person, and I think he's definitely more of a Robin than a Batman. I think you get your Batman here in terms of Tyree Wilson, a guy that can just wreak havoc on the edge, especially with the pass rush. Potentially be going against Kyler Murray. Rams could be back to relevance if if Stafford's healthy. So I love Tyree Wilson. Going with him here. I think you address that issue. You get Jamal Adams back. They got their corner maybe, and Tariq Woolen last year. And they start kind of becoming. I mean, they forget they didn't make the playoff, or they did make the playoffs last year, right?
Yeah.
I'm blanking. They did, right? I think, or they missed out. I forget. But regardless, they were knocking on the door of the playoffs last year. So you can build up that defense even better. And as long as the offense even stays status quo, you get Jamal Adams back and you get a premier pass rusher, you can do a lot of creative stuff. So, Tyree Wilson, edge out of Texas Tech. He is my guy at number 5.
They did make it, by the way.
They
They were
didn't
the
make it.
seventh
Okay, I
seed.
figured. Yeah, because we lost. We blew it. I mean, we as in the Packers. Anyway, speaking of who we blew it to, that was the Detroit Lions. They get this pick courtesy of the LA Rams. And this is where I went with Will Anderson Jr. I kind of already alluded to, just a really good all-around player. Like I kind of mentioned with Luke Van Ness, I feel like he's going to be a perfect Robin. He can play a little bit of stand-up linebacker too. So I think I'm sure Dan Campbell will love that versatility. They can do some creative things maybe down the road or even this year with him. But regardless, another guy on the edge. You're going to be. I know there's no Aaron Rodgers, but who knows what Jordan Love and the Packers could be. Regardless, the Vikings with Kirk Cousins and what am I blanking on? Oh, and the Bears. You're definitely gonna need good edge guys to contain Justin Fields and slow down that attack. I think you get your guy in Will Anderson to be your quote unquote number 2 alongside Aiden Hutchinson for the Lions. Corner was definitely a thought here. I think, but they do have another pick later. I don't want to spoil things, but I just feel like that another pick later, they can be more creative there and get the corner at that point. Or maybe once again in real life, I'm sure they may move around maybe. But Will Anderson, many people consider that best edge. I think he's second best. Seems like you're the same mindset. He goes to the Detroit Lions at number 6. But number 7's where I have my first cornerback off the board. That's our board, Devontae Witherspoon. Raiders, you're in a division with Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, and potentially a revamped Russell Wilson and Sean Payton. Feels like they're one of those teams. They've been searching for a corner since their last great corner. And I guess you could argue Nnamdi. No, he wasn't even that great with them, right? Oh, no, yeah, he was. Nnamdi Asomugha was good with the Raiders, and he left to the Eagles and fell apart. But yeah, really, probably Nnamdi Asomugha or Charles Woodson. Get Devin Witherspoon. You can at least match up with pretty much A1 across the board. You have to go up against whatever the Chiefs have, and like I said, Justin Herbert, and then the Broncos have a good assortment, and they could be right back in the mix. But passing league, you need your corner. That's why I went Devin Witherspoon out of Illinois to the Las Vegas Raiders there, because we all know that defense needs help. And yeah, 8, the Falcons. Man, they're tough. This is where I went Lucas Van Ness, the edge out of Iowa. Like I mentioned before, just a really solid Olivier Vernon type guy. I feel like that's kind of what Arthur Smith likes over there, coming from Tennessee. Believe in versatile guys. He can play, as you mentioned, inside and outside. Great run defender, good pass rusher. I think they just need a little more of those solid building blocks along with their AJ Terrells. And we'll see if they can get more out of Grady Jarrett. Maybe this will help them, kind of have a late career, comeback ish. He's kind of fallen off recent years. But with you, they've invested a lot in wide receiver. First round pick last year, and then a couple years ago, Kyle Pitts. I just don't see them investing again in a wide receiver this early. And their line's pretty good. Offensive line, I think, was one of the best. So I don't think you need to address that. And apparently they're sold on Desmond Ritter. So that's why I didn't go quarterback here, too. So that's when, once again, where I factored a little bit of what the noise I've been hearing. But who knows? Maybe they'll surprise people, but I think they give Ritter more time. So any comments thus far? Can I go to the Bears pick, my division rivals?
I mean, so far I like it. I mean, really the only major difference in terms of because I mean, like positionally, I was pretty much all the same. I mean,
Yeah.
I had corner here for the Lions, but I think I had defensive line later on. So
Yeah.
the only big difference was I had the Raiders taking a QB, but with Jimmy G there, I could see them not. So
Yeah, and that's why I didn't go. I was like, man, they just invested this money. It would just be awkward
Right.
again, I feel like, for Josh McDaniels to bring in a quarterback, in a way, piss off his current quarterback, have that quarterback on eggshells, like you mentioned. I just feel like,
Right.
but who
And
knows?
also on mine, Anthony Richardson was available. With him not there, I would not reach and take Will Levis
Yeah, I
or
don't think they
Hendon
would either.
Hooker at 7. So I mean, if he's gone at 4, then I can agree with this.
Yeah, so now we move to the Bears pick. Done a lot to address skill position for Justin Fields. Offensive line definitely was a thought for me. I initially had his tackle from Ohio State, Paris Johnson here. More I thought about it, though, once again, division to passing league, Bears need. I feel like I went with Christian Gonzalez here. The upside, Bears are still a year or two away. We both feel he still has a good floor, but definitely has a high ceiling. I went with Christian Gonzalez. Mainly, I feel like most of the premier front seven guys went in terms of Jalen Carter, Tyree Wilson, and Will Anderson. Definitely a prime trade back spot. I know they traded back from 1 to 9. Wouldn't be shocked though, because once again, if they get out of this to get more picks, but I went with Christian Gonzalez. Feels like they've been kind of struggling a bit at corner since in recent years to find a true guy there. They've got some solid guys, but I think Gonzalez can be there as we feel. If he can get that dog in him or just be more polished, he could potentially be their true number one guy to lock up, the Christian Watsons of the world within his division, Justin Jeffersons and Moner St. Browns and potentially Jameson Williamses too, along with all the other great receivers we have in the NFL. So I went with Gonzalez there at number 9 for the Bears. And number 10, the Eagles. Yeah, last year they were looking for defensive line help. The help they got kind of filled in, but it was only temporary. This is where I think we're going to go with the kid from Pittsburgh, Kalijah Cansey. That's how I pronounce it. I don't know if it's the right way, so
That's
hopefully one of us is right.
Way better than whatever the heck I said. I don't even know how I said it, but
All good. But I'm with you. I think he's definitely more of a pass rushing defensive tackle. Could move him out in the edge in certain situations, if on early downs, if you're concerned, if you want to be more size wise. But yeah, very interesting because a lot of people are trying to say he's like a diet. Obviously, had very strong emphasis on the diet. Aaron Donald. They go to Pitt, has worked with Aaron Donald, similar measurables, similar strengths as Aaron Donald, similar kind of play style where he's more of a pass rushing interior guy. Obviously, I don't think he's going to be an Aaron Donald level, but with you, I think just gives them versatility with Jordan Davis to be the plus stuffer. This guy can go after the quarterback along with Hassan Reddick on the other side. And I think they still have Brandon Graham too, or did he retire?
I don't know. I think he's still there.
Probably is, but nonetheless, you mentioned Brandon Fletcher Cox still there, so Cansey can move out to end probably at some moment. They still have Josh Sweat too, who's a solid defensive end. But I just feel like interior would probably be more of the concern for the Eagles. Kind of, it's a tough spot. It's embarrassment of riches kind of for the Eagles. They don't have any glaring holes, like we mentioned. They offensive line solid, receiver solid, could go corner, but like you said, that could be done later. So I'm with Kalijah Cansey out of Pittsburgh here, along with John. So that's one of our similarities. And ironically, Pittsburgh, keep saying it in state. And that's where I'm keeping my number 11 pick for the Tennessee Titans. Taylor Lewan retired, and rumors they may be trading Derrick Henry, but I think regardless, I don't think they're going to get quarterback. You still have Tannehill under contract, and I think you still got to give Blake Willis time. Regardless of who your quarterback is.
I do
Go
want to
ahead.
add on the quarterback situation. I've heard from some of my coworkers that there's rumors they're going to trade it for Will Levis. From what I read today, first off, the GM came out and said something along the lines of like about the QB, and he's like, wouldn't believe what people are talking about. And then apparently the rumors are today that they're not even interested in a quarterback. So just wanted to
Yeah,
throw that out there.
yeah, because they've already made the investment financially in Tannehill, and then
Yeah.
also draft wise in recent years. So yeah, I could see wide receiver here, but it just hasn't really been in their DNA. I mean, they already drafted one last year. I think with the way Mike Vrabel thinks in the trenches type, old school, you get your tackle. And once again, that's where I go with Darnell Wright. He's more of a physical. He's a little bit of a project, not as clean and pass blocking, but hey, maybe he is. He said he didn't lose a single pass blocking rep, right, in college.
I think he didn't allow a sack.
Sack in his last year, you're correct.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I could see him playing on the left side. That could be a concern, but I think he's their type of guy. As you can see, 6'5", 333. He's a big tackle, and especially since they're going to be so run heavy, you might not have to worry too much about, if that success in the pass pro will translate in the pros because I just feel like, man, he's definitely a tackle. I feel like that has, if not the highest, one of the highest upsides, and has a pretty good floor. It is scary, of course, once again, factoring that. A couple years ago, they took a tackle. It was that other kid that was Isaiah Howard or whatever. I forget. I'm sorry. And that didn't work out at all. But obviously, different kid. And ironically, went to Tennessee, too. So, yeah, I think if they want to squeeze out another year or two of Derrick Henry, try and make another run, this will help. Darnell Wright will help them in that path. And now we go to the Houston Texans, and this is where I have them taking the guy that D'Amico Ryans will love for his defense, and that is edge rusher Nolan Smith out of Georgia, who you had going to Atlanta, and yours. So yeah, like I said with you, I feel like he's a great pass rusher. I think that's going to be mainly a pass rushing specialist, and he's pretty solid in the run game too. And I think those are things that can be coachable. And with the Texans, I think they have some solid building blocks. I mentioned they have a solid O line. I think they have a good interior defensive line. Those are things you can address later in the draft. Nonetheless, get your premier pass rusher, got your quarterback. You can start finally progressing towards probably becoming a playoff contender and a successful team with those building blocks. So I went with Nolan Smith there at 12 to the Houston Texans. Now going to the Jets. As always, you can feel free to interject if you want, John. I know I haven't had many receivers taken, but don't worry, that will be coming. Not here, though. Number 13, the Jets. Going with probably the best offensive lineman prospect in this class, and that is Peter Skoronski. Can Mekhi Becton, will Mekhi Becton be healthy? Will he play left side, right side? Even if Becton plays left side, I'm with you. I think Skoronski is better at guard, but if they need to, they can move him to right tackle or left tackle, and I think he'll be solid there, regardless. But yeah, keeping Aaron Rodgers, or if they have to roll with Zach Wilson, I guess highly unlikely. But regardless, keeping their quarterback healthy, getting that run game going, and opening more holes for Breece Hall in year 2, coming off the ACL injury. This is the perfect guy for that. And defense, we saw last year, defense is great and still very young. So I didn't feel like needed to address there. So let's address the obvious issue in the room, and that is offensive line for the Jets.
For this one, I do want to add, I think it would make total sense because if they're still thinking that Mekhi Becton could be a solid option, then Skoronski's ability to play guard, at least for that first year, while Mekhi Becton is like, coming back and they're figuring it out. And then if they don't want to keep Mekhi Becton and they want to move off him, because there has been rumors in the past that they did,
Yes,
Skoronski can move out to tackle. I talk about, for example, La'el Collins did the same thing. Like, he started at guard for the Cowboys, he goes to tackle, boom, there you go. And now he's doing well. So Skoronski could be the similar way of he could play guard, he could play tackle. And also, I was reading right here, it's also funny that Rashawn Slater had similar concerns of maybe he's a guard. So Skoronski, good versatility. I like it.
yeah, and just versatility, aka insurance. Like I said, for in case Becton doesn't work out or Becton gets hurt,
Yep.
You can't quit. As much as I love Mackay, he's been hurt in recent years. That's been an issue. So, provides great insurance and versatility, things you'll love, and your offensive lineman. Now we go to the Patriots, and this is a tough one. I definitely didn't think quarterback as well. I don't, especially with as you see with me. Will Levis on the board. I think Mac Jones is already, just more polished than Levis, and I feel like Bill may be kind of starting to feel the pressure. Haven't had really much success in recent years, and bring in Billy O'Brien to help the offense. Let's also bring in a wide receiver as well to a position they've needed desperately, and that's going to be Jackson and Jigba Smith. I know Zay Flowers is my number one. New England likes size, though. They like a little bit of size with their guys, and they do play in inclement weather. And I think Jigba Smith just gives them a little bit more of a safer option. And just in terms of, like I said, size, physicality, things like that. Not that I don't think Zay Flowers can, but New England typically favors those type of things. So that was a little bit more if I'm factoring in their ideology a little bit along with mine. But man, your boy Quentin Johnson was also in. I thought, but once again, too with New England, they love versatility. I just think that's why Jackson, Smith, and Jigba kind of checks all their boxes for him. So I have New England going there.
Also,
This is not
just funnily enough, PFF says shades of Julian Edelman.
Yeah, so there you go. Like he can work. I feel like they can kind of teach him the offense, work that short to intermediate stuff, but he can still beat you deep as we've seen. Obviously, just gotta stay healthy is one of the big concerns. And now that goes to my pick. Once again, I did not set this up so we could get him. I literally I really just felt that Smith was a better fit for New England. But for my Packers, I also went with Zay Flowers. The fit is just perfect to operate in the slot or even on the outside, because I won't be shocked if very quickly him and Daubs, kind of are interchangeable within the slot, because maybe someplace they want Zay Flowers to run a deep route that Romeo Daubs, may not be able to not run, but scare the defense or just do better. So I'm going with Zay Flowers, like I mentioned, and like you mentioned, just get Jordan Love another reliable receiver, while Aaron Rodgers will be wherever he is in his dark room, shaking his fist at the TV. But yeah, not much to say there. We already mentioned him, but that's another one that we both share. Where it's just like, man, if like I text you, if that just falls the way it does in real life too, oh, I may have to buy a Flowers jersey on the spot, but we'll see. So my Packers get a skill position person. That's definitely living in a fantasy. Now we go to the Washington Commanders, and this is where actually I think cornerback Joey Porter Jr. goes. I think fits kind of Ron Rivera. He likes the more zone type guys, and Joey Porter Jr. too can just already fill in, be a solid corner for them. We mentioned William Jackson didn't really work out. I see them going with a more safer prospect. I know there's my guy DJ Turner on the board, and I thought about Keely Ringo here too, but I feel like Porter's a little more versatile and just a safer option. I feel like for the Commanders and the style they run, a lot of love to run zones and can't blame them because they have a really good front four. So Joey Porter Jr. goes there, which really sucks because you mentioned the Steelers.
Well, real quick on that one, I hope it doesn't happen, because I think back to like the most notable corner that Ron Rivera has ever had was Josh Norman, and the guy was great in press. Joey Porter Jr. very good in press. Obviously, once again, like we talked about him with our cornerback stuff. Like some of his weaknesses are a little tough, but like if he's playing the Josh Norman role, all of those weaknesses don't matter, because Josh Norman had similar weaknesses. Wasn't the fastest, wasn't great in man coverage. A lot of people criticized him because he was a one-trick corner who wouldn't follow receivers. Joey Porter has very similar concerns that people have criticized him for, but he plays in that zone. He plays like press coverage at the line of attack. Like that could be a great fit, and I hope it doesn't happen.
Yeah, and they may not be worried about some of those, not having the most elite physical traits because they have a really good front four. So it said their ideology is, well, our front four should get there in X amount of time. So
and if you're great in press, that's just gonna give them more time.
Yes. So the fit may be really good for the Washington Commanders. But yeah, I really thought about Will Levis there too. But once again, it's like it seems like they're committed to Sam Howell, and they've already invested a lot in early quarterbacks. I think they wait and I guess see this one out with Eric Bieniemy. Now Pittsburgh was tough, like I mentioned. I always want to give them a cornerback or another edge rusher, or it always feels like I'm gonna do it. But okay, last few years I've mocked them offensive linemen because I feel like they really need offensive linemen, and
Yep.
it seems like they've just ignored that, and
Don't
it's still
care.
an issue. We'll see if they'd actually follow me this year because I'm going with Paris Johnson Jr. I mentioned kind of my Dare Bakhtiari lights. They haven't really been able to open great holes for Najee Harris, and I think regardless, you got to get a guy to protect your investment, and Kenny Pickett, Paris Johnson can do that, and yeah, Pittsburgh, you need to invest in the offensive line. Like I feel like your defense, you can always figure stuff out. You're great at wide receiver. Figure out your offensive line, please, for all my Steeler fans out there. I feel like that's then we can finally see the, what they have in Najee Harris, Kenny Pickett, and such. So while I have Paris Jr. mocked. Would not be shocked if I don't even know if they do something else weird. Who knows? They may get another linebacker or an edge guy. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to them getting an edge guy, but especially at this point, I feel like most of the top guys or I feel like the high level guys are gone. And I don't think, obviously, they don't go tight end. So, nonetheless, going Paris Johnson Jr. to the Pittsburgh Steelers there to help protect Kenny Pickett. Now that leaves to the Detroit Lions pick earlier. I had them taking Will Anderson Jr. for edge. And this is where I think they get their corner. And I think this kind of, once again, this wasn't really on purpose, but this is where they get my guy, DJ Turner, out of Michigan. Another Michigan guy. I'm sure Aiden Hutchinson and him won't be shocked if they have a connection. Aiden Hutchinson's in Dan Campbell's ear, like, go get this guy. He's a stud. And, hometown kid. That could easily factor in. Like I mentioned, definitely can fly, a little bit raw, but I don't think he's too raw. I think he'll succeed. He'll have some moments of success. And I think he can be really good in man. Like I mentioned, I think he can teach zone. And especially if they do get Aiden Hutchinson's quote-unquote Robin and Will Anderson, he can definitely be their star corner and make things easier on that pass defense all around. Maybe they can move coverages to other guys and help other guys out. So I'm going with the raw prospect and DJ Turner out of Michigan to stay home to the Detroit Lions. Now we go to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. You had them taking Will Levis. I will not be having them taking Will Levis. I had them going with the tackle, Broderick Jones out of Georgia. Couldn't protect Tom Brady. How are you going to protect whoever else you put in front of him? I'll be interested to see if maybe if for some reason they do take a tackle, or do they move Tristan Wirfs? Do they keep him on the right side, or they maybe feel like he can play left tackle? Because I remember when Wirfs came out, I was like, man, he could probably play left tackle too. But Bucks, they had kind of had Benjamin Riches then. I think Darvin Smith was still solid at left side, but regardless, I think Broderick Jones can play. I think he can excel more on the right side, but he could be a left tackle too. A little more of a raw prospect than the other guys that were taking for him, and Skoronski and Darnell Wright and Paris Johnson. But I mean, to be honest, I don't expect the Bucks to be going to playoffs next year, and I just think defensive-minded head coach, they're going to be focusing more on building the trenches, kind of doing a reload. So I have Broderick Jones out of Georgia going to the Bucks to help bolster that offensive line, which leaves us to the Seattle Seahawks at 20. And this is where I have them going interior offensive line with Osiris Torrance, because earlier we had them getting their edge guy, but invested in Kenneth Walker last year, invested in Geno Smith. I don't think they need another receiver. They could probably get one later if they really want one. But we all know Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf, those are the guys. Could still get some value out of Noah Fant. Too early to take a tight end. So I went with guard. Lean into that old what made you successful, Seattle. Good offensive line, great run game, efficient pass game, and a good defense. Osiris Torrance, like you mentioned, Hog Molly. I feel like he is definitely going to be a Pete Carroll type of guy that he'll love to bring in and just get some nasty into that offensive line. So That's why I went at 20.
And once
I mean,
again, improving the offensive line the moment Russell Wilson is gone.
yeah, Russ is once again
Imagine
somewhere in Denver
Russ.
shaking his fist.
Imagine Russ had Abraham Lucas. Who's the other tackle on the left side that they got?
Why am I blanking on him? He's a first round guy. I'm blanking on him too. I'll look it up.
Him, Osiris Torrance, like all these guys on the offensive line. Oh my gosh, Russ would have been so happy. Life would have been so easy for him.
I'm blanking on this. Charles Cross.
Charles Cross, yeah.
All right, so try Cross. So yeah, that would be great. And then you can, like I said, you can find another guard or center maybe later in the draft, or or it's always tough with those. You can always kind of find one in free agency, but regardless, you'd have 3 premium spots on your offensive line filled out. Obviously, you mentioned no pick for the Miami Dolphins because they were, Texan Tom Brady per se, and maybe tanking. Nonetheless, let's go to the LA Chargers, and ironically, guess who I have here? It is Bijan Robinson. It's just like he said, it just fell kind of perfectly. You think about the situation. I really wanted to give them receiver here. Quentin Johnson was a thought, but once again, they just invested in Mike Williams. Kind of a similar skill set in terms of a big boundary receiver. And so that's why I went Bijan. Even if maybe they do figure it out with Eckler, and they, like you said, maybe they convince another year or two out of him. It kind of be a great 1-2 punch there. You get your tackle back in Rashawn Slater this year too, so that'll help bolster the offensive line, and hopefully the defense can be better and actually healthier, because that was their issue too. But regardless, Bijan Robinson just can be a great first, second, even third down back, another weapon for them to use in the short to intermediate pass game. Very interested to see what they do, and what Kellen Moore, right? Because Kellen Moore went over to the Chargers as their OC. What he can cook up if he with at least Bijan Robinson, maybe even both backs. But regardless, it just feels like a real good fit there for them to not have to worry about that. Get all the weapons you can for Justin Herbert, and like you said, it will help alleviate some other issues too, and maybe open up some things in the pass game for Keenan Allen and Mike Williams if they have a legit run threat. Now we go to Baltimore. Unlike you, I thought about corner for a moment, but I just feel like they're still committed to Marlon Humphrey. They got my guy Jalen Amore Davis last year late in the draft. Still have hopes for him, but even Marcus Peters was solid. I just feel like at times at the second half of last year, their defense started to gel. I remember those two guys, Peters and Humphreys, were both coming off ACL injuries. I don't think they invest in corner.
By the way, I think Peters is gone.
Oh, Peters is gone. Okay.
Yeah.
Oof. Regardless, I just feel like they can get in a corner day 2, 3. I went with Miles Murphy here out of Clemson for the edge, because they've really just been needing edge pressure. I know they got Odafe Owe, and he's been solid, but he hasn't been amazing. He hasn't been like a guy who can be a premier edge rusher. I feel like Murphy could possibly be that guy on the other side. They can do some versatile things with him. And yeah, they just need front 4 help, I think, has been their biggest issue in recent years. Murphy could probably be that guy. I'm not worried about their interior. They've invested in recent years in the interior, so those guys could be coming along. But edge is definitely a need for them. I wanted to put receiver, but they already brought in Odell to get Rashad Bateman back. I just, as you mentioned, I don't think they're going to be. They haven't showed a urgency to address receiver in previous years. I don't think they do so now since they got their free agent guy. So, however, the guy you had going here is who I'm having.
Real quick, on Miles
Yeah.
Murphy. I actually did initially consider a defensive end here. I don't remember where I had Miles Murphy off the top of my head. I think he was still available here. I think I had him going the Saints. But then I was like, my guy, I mean, this is also partially just a difference in our ratings last year. I had David Ojabo top 5. They did draft him. He is coming off the injury, so who knows where he's at in terms of that. But that was the only reason I potentially ruled out defensive end there. But once again, I don't know where David Ojabo is physically. I was also higher on him than you were. So, yeah, anyway.
Well, and then, Odafe Odoe, like I mentioned, kind of been underwhelming, so maybe they might use him more as a stand-up guy because he was, kind of a raw athlete. So maybe, regardless, it wouldn't hurt to have a quote-unquote third edge rusher because they haven't really had one stick per se, and we'll see if Ojabo can bounce back. But yeah, that's another tough one where I could easily see them going with an interior guy or cornerback. Deontay Banks definitely was a thought here for me too. But nonetheless, for 23, that's where actually I have Deontay Banks going to is Minnesota. Once again, I know I like Keely Ringo more, but versatility for Banks I think will sell more, especially because, like I mentioned, this Minnesota defense is kind of going through a restructure. And I just feel like versatility is very key in regards to that because you may need him in different spots. Regardless, like we mentioned, there were so many good receivers inside and outside. I feel like Banks can fill that out, and they've needed an elite corner since Xavier Rhodes basically left. I know Patrick Peterson was here for a minute, but that was washed. Old Patrick Peterson. They need someone that can, that can guard the elite receivers of the NFL. And I know quarterback's tempting, but once again, I just don't foresee them invest. They need help in a lot of other spots. They can't afford to quote unquote invest in a quarterback right now. At least I don't think so. I have him, your boy, going to the Vikings at 23. Jacksonville is very interesting. I couldn't really get a feel for them. Defensively, cornerback was a thought, but I think they still have Darius Williams too. So I think he's kind of been more their second corner. I think he'll be better. There's a Rayshon Jenkins, their safety. I thought about safety here, but he's been pretty solid for them. The line was a thought, but not a lot of linemen stuck out to me at this point. So I went. This is where I kind of got in the mind of the head coach. I went with the tight end here, Michael Mayer. I know they have, why am I blanking? Evan Ingram. And we all know he's more of a passing, pure pass, receiving tight end. Michael Mayer, I think he's a balanced tight end. I have a little bit of concerns about him separating at the next level, but regardless, I think he'll still have success in the pass game. He's a, he's 6'4", a huge guy. I think he just kind of be like the Jason Witten per se, where like people are like, how is he open? It's because, well, he runs his route the right way and just knows how to box people out. He's very good at positioning himself into those favorable spots and making those contested catches. And he's just a great blocker too. Like, yeah, he's one of the, oh wow, I didn't know that.
I know. Just, for anyone watching, this is I've never even used PFF for like stuff for the mock draft because last year we used a different site, but we're using it this year, and so we haven't read any of this, and so I just popped over because I was like, that's a really good comparison, and of course they say the same thing, Jason Witten.
So yes, that's what I feel like. Doug Peterson loves running 2 tight end sets. This could be that's what was a real choke point when he won that ring in Philadelphia. I feel like this can unlock another aspect of their offense, even help in the run game, get Travis Etienne going more, and just do a lot of creative stuff with Michael Mayer. And I know Evan Ingram had a really good year last year, but I think we've seen him being consistent. So as much as I'm hoping for him to continue to have success, you never know. We've seen, guys like Eric Ebron. Remember when he had a really good year and then disappeared off the face of the earth? Things like that can happen to those receiving tight ends. Injuries, teams just get a feel for what routes they can run. I think it just helps to have another style type guy here to at least give you versatility on offense. So I went with Michael Mayer to the Jacksonville Jaguars. I just feel like it's a really good fit for Doug Peterson's offense, and still have a lot of young pieces on defense. And like I said, I just don't feel like it's offensive lineman. I feel like most of the premium ones went, so I just wouldn't take one right now. And now we go to the old New York Giants, and this one's kind of an ironic pick. I went with Quentin Johnston, your boy out of TCU.
I hope not.
I hope I'll be very interested to see how they use him, but they don't have a type. I know they got Darren Waller, but they don't have a boundary type guy like Quentin Johnston. I feel like that could maybe unlock more of their passing game, more into the red zone. Maybe if Daniel Jones can show more of the back shoulder ability and jump ball type stuff, take more risks. I just feel like he could be a great weapon for them. Intermediate to long range long passing game weapon, and even in the short range, you believe in his short range, so that could easily be there. But it is scary because they've taken wide receiver before recently, and they just haven't figured it out. Yeah, Giants are tough. I really thought linebacker here, Simpson Jr. out of Clemson. I really thought here, but once again, like David Gilman never takes linebackers early. He's had multiple opportunities to take guys
Well, Gettleman's not there anymore, but yeah.
or Gelman's not there. But regardless, okay, so that's big. But regardless, and to be fair, like not a lot of it's. I don't know how you felt about the linebacker class, but it seems like the consensus is only like maybe going to be one, maybe two, probably maybe even one. Just is a question if even one will be taken in the first round in
Right.
terms of interior guys.
Yeah.
So it seems like people are kind of down on the class, and like running back, it's a tough position. I think we've seen in recent years that it's very hard to have longevity in that position. So yeah, I think especially since you gave Daniel Jones all this money, you got to improve the receiving core in some way. I did think Jordan Addison as well, but I think Johnson's, as we did show in our rankings, I think Johnson to me is a safer pick and has more upside, I think, than Addison. So that's who I went for the Giants. Now your Cowboys are on the clock, John. I too said no to running back. Didn't feel like linebacker was an issue. Didn't really feel like corner was an issue. Kind of got ravaged by injuries. Although some of the young guys that filled in late in the year showed some promise. I don't think it's a need, and you got Stephon Gilmore, so you're pretty good there. I think this is where I feel like there's been questions about. I know you don't question it, but people have been questioning Dak and the offense. And I think some pressures on Mike McCarthy to produce. I think you get another weapon. This is where I have Jordan Addison going. I think the Bills are shaking their fists right now if that happens. But I got Jordan Addison. You got CeeDee Lamb, short to intermediate game. You got another receiver to truly worry about. You got Brandon Cooks too. He can be more of the deep threat to stretch the field. And maybe Addison can also do all those things too. But regardless, have him at number 3. Kind of go back to what y'all were back when you had Amari and CD and just that really great passing attack where, man, it was tough for any secondary to match up with you all. I think Jordan Addison can be that guy to definitely maybe work the slot more so CD can work inside. But if you need a maybe favorable matchup, you want CD on the inside, I think Addison can also do okay on the outside. And like I said, with the addition of Cooks too, if he can stay healthy, that would be huge. I did think tight end here, but like you said, seems like Dallas has had a really good run lately of finding tight ends and developing guys later in the draft. So yeah, and then Tyler Smith was a good offensive lineman, and I just think it's too early for guard. What are your thoughts on who I have y'all getting?
I mean, for offensive line, the fact that they kept Tyron Smith too, that ruled out offensive line for me. I mean, like they still could because you want to get some guys for the future, but once they did that, I was like, all right, I don't think they're taking offensive line because shoot, that might even move Tyler Smith into guard. Maybe Tyron goes to guard to try and extend his career. I'm not sure, but for tight end, if Michael Mayer is gone, I agree. I think that. I don't think they would take Kincaid. I think they'd want the blocking. So if he's gone, I don't think they go tight end. I don't see them taking Addison. The only way I do is if they actually think that Michael Gallup is kind of done because they just paid Michael Gallup last offseason. He got like a 4 or 5 year deal, but he did have that ACL tear, and last year he could not create separation. So that's the reason that I'm not like ruling it out entirely because if he – I don't know what they are looking at on the back end. But if they're thinking that Michael Gallup could be pretty done here, and they're ready to move off him, then I could see him taking Jordan Addison. But yeah, that's the only reason I don't think so.
Only other thought was safety because I feel like that's kind of been a need, but I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I had him
at safety position.
I had him taking Brian Branch. I think their safeties are okay. Like they have Malik Hooker, they got Donovan Wilson, they got J-Ron Curse. I just think that Brian Branch has some versatility, so he could play corner initially a little bit. Like maybe you move him up, like you play like 3 safeties because the Cowboys did a lot of 3 safeties last year. So they could put him at like the nickel spot sometimes. But also like J-Ron Curse's deal was like a 2-year deal, so I think he's got 1 year left. Donovan Wilson, I could see them potentially letting him go. I don't know. So that's why I went safety. But the tough part for the Cowboys at this spot is, like I said, the 2 most obvious positions before the trades were corner and receiver. And then they go get Gilmore and Cooks. So I don't know. Like they could still, because I don't even know what Gilmore and Cooks' contracts are. They could be like 1-year deals and they're gone. And if that's the case, then getting Jordan Addison could make even more sense because it's like, hey, we're gonna have Cooks this year. We get Addison, we got 4 stud receivers, and we're not sure about Gallup. So, and then Cooks is gonna leave next year. So CD and Addison are 2 guys for the future. But yeah, I don't know. I honestly, the Cowboys could go so many different spots because once they traded for those 2 guys, they have a lot of flexibility, which is nice, but also who knows? It makes it hard to predict.
Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, I thought safety. One of my favorite safeties. My top two are just the 2 Illinois guys. So I was thinking Jartavius Martin maybe. I know I think it's Sidney Brown. I always forget because his brother I think is right, Sidney Brown. Okay, because he has a twin I think that plays running back. But anyway, but the other his counterpart, Jartavius Martin or Quan Martin I think. Is he on there?
No, maybe he's listed at corner. What's his name? Quan Martin, Illinois.
Jartavius Martin. Yeah.
Here.
Anyway, I had him.
Yeah, they have him at corner.
He's at corner. Okay, because he can play in the nickel, but he did play safety.
I mean, yeah. So he manned the slot in authority, but he's one of the best safeties. So yeah, they just have him at corner, but he's played both. Yeah.
Weird. So anyway, he was my in consideration there. Man, and yeah. So now that you tell me more about, I completely forgot. I'm not gonna lie. Forgot about Gallup. Like Gallup,
it's fine. He was not notable last year whatsoever.
So I could easily, if I were to read, maybe add asterisk, I'd put Jartavius Martin there for safety.
The tough part with the safety is, and I bring this up all the time, I even brought up my Brian Branch thing, they have not taken a safety in the first 3 rounds since 2002, which is like crazy to me. So even my pick of Brian Branch was probably unrealistic because it seems they just don't care about safeties. But anyway.
Yeah, so we'll see what your Cowboys do. But anyway, like I mentioned, the Bills probably be upset that Jordan Addison is gone. This is also where I thought about Jartavius Martin, but it's not where I put him. I've mentioned this before. I feel like I've had them mocked a wide receiver last year. I'm going to have him mock another wide receiver here, and I think you know who it is. My boy, Jalen Hyatt. You need another weapon. You know when a person is scary, and I think he can at least be a good Robin, at least be a deep threat. Then let let Diggs cook in the short to intermediate, and he can cook deep too. And then that way, Gabe Davis, as he was supposed to be the number 2, hasn't been consistent enough. Maybe he's just better as a number 3, in certain times and matchups. But I think Hyatt, or if anything, they can split the number 2. Or I don't know. Regardless, Hyatt though, like I said, can fly, can give Josh Allen this offense a consistent deep threats, just another receiver to at least scare the defense. And like I said, at least stretch the defense maybe to open more possibilities for the Diggses and everyone else. Not tight end, but they don't really utilize tight end greatly, I feel like. So I don't think they'll invest a first-round pick in it, especially since Bijan's gone. I don't think that they get a running back, obviously. Like you mentioned, they invested in James Cook. And I'm hoping it seems like they're leaning that way because they let Devin Singletary walk. I did think O-line here too, but I would like for them to have more of a running mentality, but it just hasn't been. We just haven't seen that. I feel like it's been a thing we've been mentioning the past few years. Hey, maybe y'all should have a little bit more balanced attack, so it's not all on Josh Allen. But I just don't see them doing that. Defense is a thought. They could go linebacker. I think because Tremaine Edmonds, I believe, left, if I recall correctly. And their safety has been an issue. Mike Hyde got hurt last year. Poyer was dealing with an injury. But I think you can find those later in the draft. So I went with Hyatt here for the Bills. They get another weapon that they've been needing for Josh Allen and the offense. Now we go to Cincinnati Bengals. And I have them taking tight end Dalton Kincaid here as well. I think you had him right as well here. Yep. Yeah, I mean, this is a great fit. He's a great pass catching tight end. I think he puts in solid effort in the run game. I don't think he's going to be a great run blocker, but puts the effort and gets in front of the guy at least. That's sometimes all you can ask for. And regardless, doesn't seem to be a strength of the Bengals, especially now they lost Samaje Perine, and who knows what will happen with Joe Mixon. But regardless, we know the strengths is Joe Burrow, the 3 receivers. Now you add in Dalton Kincaid. He can probably get a lot of one-on-one matchups, and he can also split out too as a wide receiver. Is a pretty good route tree, and I mean, I think he could probably be You mentioned Tyler Boyd starting to fade into the sunlight. I think he has the potential to be their number 3 reliable option here in critical situations, and he'll have every opportunity to because we know how good Jamar Chase and T. Higgins are and the problems that they pose to any defense. So I went with Dalton Kincaid filling that tight end spot that Hayden Hurst did a pretty good job of last year. I feel like Kincaid's an even better passing or receiving prospect than Hayden Hurst. So, yeah, that would be definitely be scary for any team in the AFC North for them to get that guy and Dalton Kincaid. Now we go to the Saints, and yeah, I went with interior D line. The Saints are interesting. They need a lot of help, and I guess their O line's good, receivers good. Thought about quarterback, but they did invest in Derek Carr. So I went with Brian Brees out of Clemson. I just think he provides some good versatility for them, and they lost a lot of defensive linemen the past few years. I feel like he could play edge if he needs to, but this is more just filling a need for the Saints and that defense because they still have some good pieces. Cameron Johnson, or Cameron Jordan. Jeez, I'm mixing up my NBA's going on too, so I'm mixing up my Camerons and Jordans. We know their corners are good. Demario Davis is still, playing at a good level, and they have like 3 safeties, even though Tyrann Mathieu. Anyway, safeties have been okay. So get a defensive lineman, and just to fill that need that obviously has been vacated in this past off season. So that's who the Saints got. Now I go to the Eagles. Earlier, I had the Eagles grabbing Kalijah Kancey, defensive lineman. Now, they did lose Kazir White, who was a really good linebacker, and I have them taking a replacement here, and that is going to be Mr. Simpson Jr. out of Clemson. They list him as an edge? Trenton Simpson, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, Trenton Simpson, great in pass coverage. That's going to be his main strength. Not amazing in the run game, but I think it's something that he can fill into, and as PFF sites, could be a second or third round guy. So they could wait on this guy. Once again, end of the first round, easily could see the Eagles trading out on this pick, grabbing Trent Simpson in day 2, but that's not how we're doing here. Regardless, I think he fills in that Kazir White role, or he can at least be a pass covering specialist in case they feel that maybe Nakobe Dean, who they drafted last year, will fill that role. Once again, it's hard to tell for right now. But regardless, I think Simpson's a great chess piece for them, especially if Jordan Davis works out and their defensive line plays up to the level that we believe it can, and they get my other guy there that we got earlier to help with that. I think Trent Simpson could be a great piece for them and be a good linebacker that they really haven't had. Philly's one of those other teams too. I don't remember them having like iconic inside linebackers in recent years. They've had like guys fill in, be solid, but no one high level. But at least Trent Simpson can be a fill-in type person to help them stay and win now and help them compete right away. So he's who I have going to the Eagles at 30. And finally, last but not least, at 31 for my Kansas City Chiefs. I'm with you. I didn't go receiver. I don't think receiver is a need, especially with how the board fell. Defensive line's interesting. I know people are theorizing that lost some depth, but I think that's one of those positions that they look at second, third round. So I have them going safety. Getting Tartavius Martin, my guy out of Illinois. I think he just because of his versatility can in the box, can kind of play nickel as well. Because corner hasn't always been strong for them at times. Like Devin Witherspoon, maybe they fed off each other. He's one of those guys that plays a lot of attitude, can be a leader of that defense. Not that they don't need a leader; they already have Chris Jones, but hey, it can always help to have another alpha dog, especially in the secondary for Kansas City. So yeah, I think Martin gives them another chess piece in the secondary. Move him in the box, move him in nickel at times, just to wreak havoc wherever he is. So, and it's a passing league, so I feel like defensive back is one of those things where you're gonna need to have good depth at. So that is my mock. Any comments and such you want to throw in, John?
Sorry, just resizing it so we can see poor Joey Porter's name is getting cut off at the bottom of the screen. I like it. I mean, like you said, we have some similarities. I'm trying to count them all. We got Stroud, Tyree Wilson, Kalijah Kancey,
Zay Flowers for
Zay
my Packers.
Flowers, that's 4. We got
Bijan at
Bijan.
21.
Yep.
Kincaid. I think that's it, right?
Yep, I think that's it. So I mean, only 6, but for the most part, in terms of like approach, yeah, I mean, like the only major difference was me probably passing on Bryce Young at number 2. Once again, I think in terms of real life, that's probably what's going to happen. I'm not upset if the Texans do it. I do think that Bryce Young's a good quarterback. I had him at number 4, so it's not that big of a difference. Like I said, I just think the Texans are in a very unique scenario where I think their roster sucks so much that they could probably get the number 1 overall pick again next year. And if that's the case, I personally prefer those quarterbacks to any of this year's quarterbacks. So, yeah, I mean, I don't have any major complaints about it. I think it's a good draft.
Only pushback I think if that people may have in mind is obviously Will Levis in the first round, but I think he was 4 for me, and it's just I think I said in my mock it was just I think he will. I can foresee him going in the first round. It's just in my mock I just don't foresee any like the Saints. I just didn't see any spots obvious for him to kind of go to.
Yeah, I mean, I personally wouldn't take him in the first round.
Yeah.
I just threw him at the Buccaneers because, like I said, there was just so many holes of that roster that I didn't know where to go, and I just thought, well, I guess throw a quarterback in there. It was kind of a cop-out answer, but that's what I went with.
Yeah, I mean, and once like again, we have like no. If like Tampa Bay is one of those teams, as of right now, we just don't have kind of a clue as to where they're going. And like you said, and the fit makes sense because they kind of just have a short-term rental on Baker Mayfield, and I think is that analogy once the guy is a couple years in, like you kind of know what he is, and you kind of know what Baker Mayfield is, and so yeah, I can easily see them saying, "Oh, let's kick the tires on Will, give him a couple weeks or maybe a year to sit, and then maybe we can go with him later down the road." So yeah, I wouldn't expect. Yeah, it's just tough for the trades because I feel like some of these guys like I don't think Simpson goes in the first round or Martin, and probably Breesy. I feel like those are areas where trade-ins will happen. It's always at the end to get that 50-year option.
Right.
Like once again, maybe that's where Tampa Bay comes in later to grab him. You know what I mean? So they still get their initial first-round pick used on position of need,
right?
And then they get their project quarterback with the 5th-year option at the end of the first round. So, but yeah, other than that, I got no other comments. Like I said with you, and like you said, we're generally on the same mindset, but different, a few different flavors,
right,
in our approaches. So, but yeah, I was really surprised to be here. I think I was expecting you guys